Raider Nation, what is up? This is Darth Raider here, and I'm coming at you with another version of the Friday Blitz on a Saturday. Had way too many things to do this Friday. Got a baby coming up in about a couple of weeks, so just prepping for that. Lots of doctor visits and all that stuff. But anyways, a couple of things did happen. We'll go ahead and talk about this whole Pro Bowl situation. We're going to go ahead and talk about the East-West Shrine game that also happened in Las Vegas at Allegiant. Looks like we signed someone in the coaching staff, and we also signed a player. So let's go ahead and get into it right now. So we'll go ahead and start off with the transaction. It looks like we signed offensive lineman Justin Murray. He was actually drafted by the Oakland Raiders back in 2018. He only played like 2 games with us before getting cut. He has spent the rest of his time in Arizona. To be honest with you, it doesn't even look like he had much playing time either. I checked out his stats. It looks like he played maybe 1 game. So like last week's signings, it just kind of looks like we're just adding someone as a camp body. We also did sign someone to the coaching staff coming up next year. Former offensive coordinator to the Washington Commanders, Scott Turner, joined the Raiders as the offensive passing assistant. I don't know what that means, but it kind of just sounds like someone else for Josh McDaniels to kind of groom / or pick off some ideas from. The link that we have to the Raiders to Scott Turner is that he was actually the quarterback for UNLV while he was in college. Plus, his dad is Norv Turner. If you guys remember him, he was actually our coach for a couple of years. So it's kind of funny that it kind of goes full circle here. So that's it as far as additions go here for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now moving on to the East-West Shrine game. First and foremost, I want to say shout out to Raiders.Scout on Instagram. If you're not following him, please follow him on Instagram. This dude is very, very valuable, super knowledgeable. He's always going out there and checking out people that are going to be coming up from, the combines, from college and stuff like that. He did point out 3 different players that we had talked to, and I'm going to go ahead and talk to him a little bit. I don't know much about college and stuff like that, so I'm not going to sit here and, try to act like, I watch college football and stuff like that. So I'm just going to grab a couple notes here. The first player that we had actually spoken to is going to be Mikael Jones, linebacker out of Syracuse. Dude is 6'2", 220 pounds. He appeared in like 42 career games, had like almost 300 tackles and 8.5 sacks. He is projected to be a 4th round draft pick. So don't be surprised if we go after him in the 4th round. Another player that we had checked out and I find very, very interesting is going to be safety Quindell Jones out of Memphis. He's 6'2", 195 pounds, so it's a little bit of a bigger frame, which actually that might means it might be a good situation for us to, kind of use him as a kind of hybrid linebacker / safety role. Dude had 320 tackles, 10 interceptions, and he's projected to be a 3rd round draft pick. We also met up with cornerback Stephen Jones Jr. out of Appalachian State. Dude's 5'11", 186 pounds, 125 tackles, 6 interceptions, 4 of them were actually to the house. I don't mind us looking at a cornerback at all. He is projected to be like a 5th round draft pick. The last guy that we actually talked to was going to be defensive lineman Liami Fehoko. I hope I pronounced that right, Uso. Please don't kill me if I actually, butcher that name. Fehoko is 6'5", 265 pounds, 191 tackles, 23 sacks. He's projected to be a 3rd or a 4th rounder. I kind of like this guy. Then again, I'm a little bit biased as well. This guy's from San Jose State. I lived in San Jose for about a year with the homie that actually went to San Jose State. So, just kind of bringing that in together, to the Raiders would be actually pretty awesome for me to see. So out of all these guys that I mentioned, don't be surprised if the Raiders actually pick one of these guys in these mid to later rounds. Also, another person that I wanted to talk about is going to be defensive end Jose Ramirez out of Eastern Michigan. Lots of us didn't know who he was. There's going to be a lot of people here that know who he is now. This dude's been absolutely lighting it up over at the East-West Shrine game, consistently beating all the guards and all the tackles and all those drills. The guy is 6'2", 252 pounds. He had 12 sacks, couple of forced fumbles last year. He's absolutely wrecking shop right now. So I'm hoping that, this guy kind of falls over to us. Last time we drafted an Eastern Michigan defensive end, Max Crosby. I think he worked out pretty well. So that's another guy to go ahead and, keep your eyes on. While we did have the East-West Shrine game week over at Allegiant, we also have the Pro Bowl weekend over at Allegiant as well. A couple of our players actually participate in some of these events, a couple of them being in the dodgeball event. Josh Jacobs and Max Crosby participated in that, while our current former whatever it might be quarterback Derek Carr participated in the precision passing challenge. The AFC won in both of these events as well, so far we're 2-0. And a thing of note, obviously, I'm sure all of you guys have seen, DC was actually the top scorer in that precision passing challenge, which actually helped the AFC win that competition. Now that we're kind of talking about Derek Carr, let's go ahead and transition over to that, DC news. So according to Adam Schefter, I'm going to go ahead and read out this tweet. When I read it at first, I was a little bit confused, but obviously there was some clarification later on. Raiders have already granted quarterback Derek Carr permission to speak with other teams interested in trading for him that have also agreed to compensation with Las Vegas, per sources. Now, for me, the wording was a little bit weird when I first read this. I was like, wait, so is he allowed to talk to these people or not? Like, what's really going on? Is he allowed to talk to people that have already made a type of deal with the Raiders? Has there already been talks with the Raiders? Has DC been having secret talks with other teams? But thank you to Tashawn Reed, the Raiders have not agreed to terms for a Derek Carr trade with any teams. All ESPN was just reporting is simply stating that if or / when they agree to a trade, then that's when Carr can go ahead and talk to that, to that team to see if he wants to go. So all in all, it just kind of says that the Raiders have been talking to, teams. Now it just means that, like, hey, I'm just going to throw a name out there. Hey, the Saints want to go ahead and, sign you. Do you want to go ahead and talk to the Saints? Then at that point, obviously Derek could come in, work out a deal. Or if he wants to go ahead and say no thanks, then, he can obviously say no thanks to, like the Saints, for example. At the end of the day, I think the Raiders front office is trying as best as they can to control the situation. But at the same time, they also realize that Derek Carr is actually the one that has most of the power, if not all the power in the situation. What also kind of sounds like is that DC actually wants to go ahead and talk to these other teams and then kind of present that, over to the front office and say like, hey, I was speaking to whatever, Houston or whatever, and they're interested. You want to go ahead and talk to them? Then at that point, obviously the Raiders would go ahead and, talk to them and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, it's a lot of he said, she said. Thing is that we're getting really close to the day. There's only 11 days left and there hasn't been a resolution just yet, which to me kind of seems that the closer and closer that we get to that deadline, the more and more likely for a team to actually make a trade. It's just not going to happen. Thank you once again for hanging out with me, going over what's going on, during the week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more stuff going on. I hear a lot of Aaron Rodgers, talks going on today, but that's going to be a whole different subject for next week. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Darth Raider is out.